Mr. Minister, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson, distinguished ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to start by congratulating you, Mr. Chairperson, and through you, my dear colleague, Minister Bույար Օսմանիին, on assuming by North Macedonia of the chairmanship of the OSCE, and wish you all the success in your challenging endeavor of leading this largest security organization in times of unprecedented setbacks and crises in our common security area. We welcome the human-centric concept of security, which will be the guiding approach of the North Macedonian chairmanship under the motto, "It's about people." One cannot say better, since the organization has been established first and foremost to serve the interest of people and ensure their rights and security. I assure you of Armenia's support in all your efforts contributing of creating conditions for the people in the OSCE area to live in a more secure and safe environment. I would also like to thank you, Mr. Chairperson, for convening this special PC meeting and giving me the opportunity to speak about the situation in our region, and particularly the blockade of the Lachin corridor. Mr. Chairperson, I wish I could have come here to the PC to talk about the achievements of Armenia in strengthening its democracy, human rights, and the rule of law, and the process of successfully implementing large-scale reforms from judiciary to police, from fighting corruption to improving the social cohesion and justice. And believe me, I would have many things to say. Unfortunately, the security crisis and challenges following the war of aggression by Azerbaijan against Nagorno-Karabakh in 2020 and the subsequent aggression and occupation by Azerbaijan of the sovereign territory of Armenia threatens the Armenian democracy, undermining the efforts of the Armenian government towards bringing peace, stability, and security to the South Caucasus region. Since this is the first time that the Foreign Minister of Armenia addresses the Permanent Council following the 44-day war of aggression and occupation of Armenia's territory, I would like to briefly reflect on the impact that this large-scale, unprecedented use of force for the settlement of conflict have had in terms of perception of the OSCE, its principles and commitments, and its concept of comprehensive and indivisible security. The 44 days war of aggression was accompanied with war crimes and widespread violations of international humanitarian law, targeting of civilian population and infrastructure, destruction of cultural heritage, which were not properly investigated, and no one has been held accountable. Throughout decades, the OSCE has been developing a set of tools, or the toolbox, aimed at early warning and conflict prevention. Unfortunately, it pains to me say this, but we have to recognize that the OSCE failed to apply this toolkit effectively and in a timely manner. Furthermore, the absence of proper and robust reaction resulted in the impunity for the use of force as means of conflict settlement in violation of the OSCE principles, commitments enshrined in its basic documents, leading to the legitimation of violence in the interstate and intrastate relations. Following the signing of the November 9, 2020 trilateral statement on cessation of armed hostilities in Nagorno-Karabakh, Armenia spared no efforts to achieve a normalization of relations with Azerbaijan and addressing the rights and security of the people of Nagorno-Karabakh. Unfortunately, the Azerbaijani side, instead of engaging in good faith into the negotiations, continues its active policy. Immediately after signing the trilateral statement, the Azerbaijani side violated the commitment on complete ceasefire and cessation of all military operations and launched an attack on Nagorno-Karabakh, which resulted in capturing of 2 more villages and captivity of the Armenian servicemen. In May and November 2021, as well as in September last year, the Azerbaijani side launched an aggression against the Republic of Armenia, occupying around 140 or 50 square kilometers of the southern territories of Armenia. Today, with the blockade of the Lachin corridor, the Azerbaijani side created a humanitarian crisis with far-going intentions. On 12th of December last year, a group of Azerbaijanis claimed to be environmental activists blocked the Lachin corridor, the lifeline, the only road linking Nagorno-Karabakh with Armenia and the rest of the world, thus effectively isolating 120,000 people in Nagorno-Karabakh, 30,000 of which are children. Over 1,000 people, including 270 children, are unable to return home to Nagorno-Karabakh. Some of those children are separated from their parents and were temporarily sheltered in Armenia. From the very beginning, it was obvious that this blockade was a pre-planned action directed and financed by the Azerbaijani authorities, using the cover of so-called eco-activists for plausible deniability. These actions of Azerbaijan constitute an overt breach of paragraph 6 of the November 9th trilateral statement, which clearly indicates, and I quote, "The Lachin corridor shall remain under the control of the peacekeeping contingent of the Russian Federation. The Republic of Azerbaijan shall guarantee safe movement of citizens, vehicles, and cargo in both directions along the Lachin corridor." End of quotation. For more than a month ago, the people of Nagorno-Karabakh remain under the factual siege. Food, medical, and energy supplies to Nagorno-Karabakh are almost completely halted. About 400 tons of essential goods, including grain, flour, rice, vegetables, fruits, medicines, baby formula, were imported to Nagorno-Karabakh from Armenia daily. After around 5 weeks of blockade, there is a severe shortage of all essential goods. Moreover, deliberate 3-day interruption of the gas supply in freezing winter conditions, followed by ongoing disruptions of electricity grid and telecommunication lines in the entire territory of Nagorno-Karabakh, are another evidence of pre-planned actions of the Azerbaijani authorities. These severely impact the daily life of the people and lead to a number of adverse humanitarian consequences, such as lack of electricity, disruption of the educational process at the schools, disruption of the work of state agencies and of the heating of vitally important institutions such as hospitals, disruption of businesses. People are deprived of heating and hot water. The authorities introduced the rationing of fuel and now of food and essential goods. The humanitarian crisis is worsening by each passing day and requires immediate and targeted intervention of the international community. We cannot stand by and watch how people are slowly starving to death because of political games and perhaps geopolitical considerations. The time to act is now. At the request of Armenia, this issue has been discussed at the UN Security Council. We have briefed the members of the Security Council and also the Secretary General about the dire situation and urged our partners to step in and stop the unfolding humanitarian catastrophe. Of course, I could not but welcome the unambiguous statements and positions of our partner countries calling Azerbaijan to immediately and without preconditions lift the blockade and ensure the free and unimpeded movement through the Lachin corridor. I believe that we should increase the pressure on Azerbaijan for it to comply with its own commitments. Azerbaijan should face consequences for these actions. The blockade of Nagorno-Karabakh is not an isolated episode, but must be seen as part of a widespread and systematic policy of Azerbaijan aimed at the ethnic cleansing of the people of Nagorno-Karabakh. Through creating unbearable living conditions, Azerbaijan aims to coerce the people of Nagorno-Karabakh to leave their native land, leave their homes. The recent statement of the President of Azerbaijan suggesting the deportation of those Armenians who do not want to become citizens of Azerbaijan comes to prove their intention of ethnic cleansing. It is imperative to send an international fact-finding mission to Nagorno-Karabakh and the Lachin corridor to assess the humanitarian situation on the ground, as well as to ensure unhindered humanitarian access to Nagorno-Karabakh for relevant UN bodies. Excellencies, having the political will to normalize relations with Azerbaijan, the Armenian government engaged in good faith in talks with Azerbaijan in 3 separate tracks, namely the opening of all transport communications in the region, delimitation and border security, and the agreement on normalization of relations or peace agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan. In the first track, the resumption of economic and transport links in the region, we have established a trilateral working group headed from our side by the Deputy Prime Minister. There have been several meetings in this format, and issues of possible roads and railway connections, as well as other details related to the unblocking regional communications were discussed. Unfortunately, Azerbaijan's approach in this process was non-constructive from the very beginning. Despite its clear commitment taken under November 9 and 2020 and 11th of January of 2021 trilateral statements, Azerbaijan put forward the unsubstantiated demand for the extraterritorial corridor through the sovereign territory of Armenia. I want to clearly state that Armenia never took any commitment or agreed in any manner to any extraterritorial corridor through its territory. And all the claims by the Azerbaijani side are clear distortion and manipulation of the substance of the trilateral statements. Recently, the president of Azerbaijan acknowledged that it was himself who introduced the term of so-called Zangezur corridor in the international agenda and threatened to establish it sooner or later, regardless whether Armenia wants it or not. And he said that he introduced this term after the signing of November 9 trilateral statement. I would like to once again make it clear, we rule out any extraterritorial corridor on the territory of the Republic of Armenia and will not provide any corridor to anyone. This is a principled and irrevocable position, fully in line with the relevant provision of the November 9th statement. Moreover, the decision on providing a link between the western regions of Azerbaijan and Nakhichevan can be adopted swiftly as soon as Azerbaijan admits that all communications should operate under the jurisdiction and legislation of the Republic of Armenia. In this context, I would like to inform you that recently another attempt to find the final agreement on the opening of railway communications didn't succeed, as the Azerbaijani side put forward new conditions that were in contradiction with primary understanding of the sides on the modalities. In fact, this was the second time that Azerbaijan's actions derailed the progress on this issue. The first time, the preliminary agreement to solve the issues of railway connection was reached back in December 2021. This fact has even found its place in the statement of the President of the European Council, Charles Michel, from 14th of December 2021. The second track of the normalization talks is the work of commissions of delimitation and border security. The commissions were created after the armed incursion of the Azerbaijani armed forces into the sovereign territory of Republic of Armenia on 12th of May of 2021 and the subsequent occupation of Armenia's lands. The commissions held meetings to discuss the parameters of delimitation of the international border between Armenia and Azerbaijan. We firmly believe that without clearly agreed parameters of delimitation of the border, it will be impossible to achieve a sustainable peace. In this regard, the agreements reached in Prague and Sochi in particular, the reference to the Almaty Protocol and subsequent documents, is of utmost importance. Though in subsequent interpretations, the President of Azerbaijan, while claiming that Armenia thus recognized Azerbaijan's territorial integrity, failed to affirm the respect for the territorial integrity of Armenia. The work of the commissions was hampered by Azerbaijan. First, despite the agreements that the Commission should have a double mandate and work on delimitation and stable security situation along and in the vicinity of the borderline reached in Sochi on 26th of November 2021, and during the second trilateral meeting of the leaders of Armenia and Azerbaijan hosted by the President of the European Council, it refused to include the term border security in the title of the Commission, which was rather indicative of its true intentions. Then, on 13th of September 2022, the armed forces of Azerbaijan launched an unprovoked and unjustified large-scale military attack in the southern and southeastern directions of the Republic of Armenia, resulted in invasion into an occupation of other swaths of the sovereign territory of Armenia. More than 200 servicemen were killed. The towns and villages in border provinces were indiscriminately shelled. During this aggression, Azerbaijani armed forces committed war crimes, extrajudicial killings, subjected Armenian military personnel, including women, to the most shocking and horrific humiliation and torture. These facts were documented by the Azerbaijani servicemen themselves and were uploaded to various social media outlets, clearly aiming to intimidate the Armenian side. In fact, the 44 days war of aggression was also accompanied by the large-scale violations of international humanitarian law. In this context, taking this opportunity, I would like to express our gratitude to Polish chairmanship, the Secretary General, the OSCE Troika, and the FSC chairmanship for dispatching the OSCE Needs Assessment Mission to Armenia to assess the situation on the ground, as well as all appreciation of efforts of those who supported the mission. The report of the mission clearly revealed the scale and magnitude of destruction, and we took note of conclusions and recommendations contained therein, which we believe should serve as a reference point for the follow-up and further engagement of the OSCE executive structures with Armenia. I also would like to thank the European Union for dispatching the monitoring mission to Armenia. We stand ready for further cooperation in this regard. The September aggression, as well as previous attacks and provocations by Azerbaijan, should be considered against the broader background of ever-expanding territorial claims against Armenia, including the capital city Yerevan, constantly voiced by the President of Azerbaijan and echoed by other high-ranking political personalities, which are accompanied manifestly by threats of use of force. This tactic of coercive foreign policy is deployed by Azerbaijan to extract endless one-sided concessions. For the moment, we see no indication of changing of this policy pattern, that is, of Azerbaijan's willingness to abandon its territorial claims, its bellicose rhetoric, and to commit to peace. Under these circumstances, we have all grounds to believe that even after the signing of an agreement on normalization of relations with Azerbaijan, it will continue to raise these absurd territorial claims against Armenia. The third track of talks is related to the text of the possible agreement on normalization of relations between Armenia and Azerbaijan, a peace treaty, which should comprehensively address all the issues and create a conducive security environment for continuation of discussions in various directions. The Armenian side suggested several fundamental proposals, in particular on clarification of parameters of delimitation of the international border, on distancing of forces from the state border and creation of a demilitarized zone, as well as creation of the Institute of Guarantors of the Peace Agreement. It is regrettable that all the proposals of the Armenian side were rejected by Azerbaijan. Along with this, we believe that the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, the issue of guarantees of rights and securities of people living in Nagorno-Karabakh, also have to be somehow addressed. However, taking into account the Azerbaijani suggestion to discuss the issue separately from the peace agreement, the Armenian side suggested creating an international mechanism for dialogue between Stepanakert and Baku. We have to recognize the enormity of this task, considering that for more than 30 years there were effectively no relations between the two countries. But we firmly believe that the normalization of Armenia-Azerbaijan relations is crucial for the security and stability of the region and its perspectives. However, and this should be also recognized, this normalization could not be achieved without addressing the root causes of the conflict, the issue of fundamental human rights and the political will to work towards reconciliation. The blockade of the Lachin corridor, which goes exactly in opposite direction and makes the perspective of any progress in all these tracks even more distant, proves once again the absolute necessity of international engagement to address the issues of rights and security of the people of Nagorno-Karabakh. Excellencies, Nagorno-Karabakh conflict continues to remain a significant challenge to the regional and international peace and stability. The aggressive posturing, anti-Armenian rhetoric directed against Nagorno-Karabakh and Armenia, the blockade of the Lachin corridor comes to confirm this fact. More than 2 years after the signing of trilateral statement on November 9, 2020, Azerbaijan still refuses to repatriate all Armenian prisoners of war, captives, and other detained persons, in violation of obligations under Geneva Conventions, trilateral statement itself, and the constant calls of the international community. Currently, according to the data confirmed by Azerbaijan, 33 people are still kept hostage in Baku. I must also highlight 24 well-documented cases of enforced disappearances where we are in possession of indisputable recorded facts of the capture of Armenian prisoners of war, yet Azerbaijan rejects their captivity. Armenia is also extremely concerned about the state of the Armenian cultural heritage in the territories that fell under the Azerbaijani control in the aftermath of 2020 war. Dispatching of a UNESCO fact-finding mission to Nagorno-Karabakh and the surrounding territories, talks on which have been ongoing since November 2020, are still rejected by the Azerbaijani side. We understand that nowadays the OSCE is not having the best days, and the situation in the South Caucasus is not the only crisis that the organization is facing. At the same time, we believe that all conflicts in the area of OSCE responsibility should have the adequate attention of the organization and its structures. The OSCE, with the co-chairs of the Minsk group, has been involved in political resolution of the conflict from the very beginning. Despite all the challenges, the Minsk group still has a responsibility, as the political resolution of the conflict is yet to be achieved. We believe that OSCE can play an instrumental role not merely in achieving but also sustaining peace through the involvement of its structures. I thank you.